Okay, so I think we'll move on to the third question, which is all about who's great. Who in this room is great and why are we great? No, it's not about one, that's what this is just. Which are the leading institutions? Who, which? Sorry, no, wasn't quite right there. And what areas do they have to pursue? And to what extent does it matter? I think we've touched on a few areas of success, but it'd be quite interesting to hear your views on worldwide leaders within this, whether it's academia or whether it's should you go first, William?
I'll take a swing at this one. I mean, I'm going to declare an interest here. So on my list of kind of leading institutions or places where I think there is a success story to tell, I'm going to lead off with the Archaeology Data Service. That's not surprisingly. I work there. I have a vested interest in it. But it's not just me saying that, because they also won, and there are kind of formal reasons for identifying them, because they also won the DPC Decennial Award, the 10-year prize for the best, most impressive impact. I can't remember the exact citation, but the community identified them as the success story of the decade. And there's a couple of different reasons. I mean, firstly, they've done what a lot of institutions haven't been able to do, which is to turn research and development into services. Okay, how many show of hands in the room of anyone who's ever been involved in a big European funded project doing research and development that didn't lead to a service sustainably at the end of it? I think that's one of the kind of, okay, you don't need to show your hands. You know where I'm going with that. ADS actually has this little research thing going on which turns things out into services, which is clever. I don't know how quite they managed it. I guess it's slightly sure-footed navigation. The second reason is that it's just that they didn't exist as an organisation much before. They have a single mandate by digital business. It's not like they're hiding behind another national mission or another kind of agency. That's what they're there for. And I suppose more than anything, it's because they're still there. They are just still there, despite everything, despite the research councils. A new part of the kind of the sorts of fall. I mean, I remember two of us sitting around tables and kind of unhappy meetings in 2004, 2005. But they've survived, and it's the business model, I think, perhaps more than the technology that I think is worth celebrating. I mean, there are leading institutions, but that's just one example. But there are leading institutions. Thinking about my own, kind of thinking of DPC members. I look to some organisations for real strength. I think about HATII, for example, and their work in time-based media. Digital art, it's not the only example, but there's always good thinking there, and I'm sure they could do more, and I'm sure they'd like to implement it, but it's always impressive. I think of the UK Data Archive, who they've actually lasted longer than the ADS in this scheme of things, and their capacity to put data, complex, sophisticated data in front of users is very impressive. Massively curated, I mean, massively complicated task, but there they are nonetheless. I like the way the ULCC has turned training into effectively a business model. Everyone's been so focused on can you make money out of submission information packages, or can you make money out of dissemination information, basically selling storage or selling data. Well, they've taken all the knowledge that sits in between and tried to turn that into a business model, and actually that's quite clever. I like what the British Library's done in terms of web archiving. I like what the National Archives have done in terms of web archiving. I love web continuity, and if you go online, whatever government is returned on the 8th of May, thank you, whatever colour of government is, the government minister's photo is going to be online and it's going to be updated, but the archive will have the previous government minister and all his previous statements on the UK web archive. That's spot on, that's very clever. I like what Crony are doing. They think about their users. They're thinking about their relatively small, relatively modest record office. I think NRS look like they've got great potential. I think they've had a couple of missteps, to be honest, but they've decided to invest here, and I think that'll be an interesting one to watch. So there's a few of the organisations that have been a success. I mean, I've mentioned already Portico, I mentioned already Clocks. They're inserting themselves into a value chain and having some of that sustainability, having some of the money, because people understand the value of journals. It's not a hard one to sell. So there's a few institutions, and I've been typically picking DPC members and answering that question because I've got such a large range of them to choose from, to be honest, and there's a lot of success stories there. And I should apologise to the camera for anyone that I've missed off that list.
Seamus, perhaps give us a slightly
I'm going to
more
pick up.
international view.
Yeah.
You managed to get across the water to Groningen.
I'm going to pick up, break it into two groups. One, I'm going to break it into the memory institutions on the one side, the libraries, the archives, museums, and into the universities and research centers on the other.
Yeah.
Because I think there are two different kinds of activities that are going on here.
Yeah.
While the libraries and archives and museums and memory institutions have shown a lot of leadership in terms of policy development, in terms of advocating about the problem, they haven't done quite so well in terms of research leadership.
Yeah.
They've done a lot to catalyze research, but they haven't done so much in research leadership. But there are some exceptions. And I was thinking of the National Archives of the Netherlands, the Dutch National Archives, where they actually really led initially some of the Steenbecker's work in metadata, the earliest studies of metadata that was done, and really effective. Work that they did on developing the tools for experimentation and also for in repository work. I would also say the Australian National Library for its work in raising awareness was extremely important, and the work that Steve Knight has done in New Zealand, which has inspired the development of tools like Rosetta from Ex Libris, as well as other products. Those are really good examples.
Steve's not had a huge amount of money, but the influence he's had internationally is tremendous as well.
It's absolutely awesome. But some areas where we actually failed and we still haven't addressed it is that those institutions all think of themselves as separate entities. So I did some work in New Zealand at one point for Steve, and I was tasked to go and talk to the National Archives because they were trying to get, the National Library was trying to get some money to build a repository. And I went over to the National Archives and I said, look, why don't we team up so that we can ask for one pot of money to build one repository. And the National Archivist, Dan McCaskill said, the problems are very different. You really don't understand our issues. Sorry,